So, I'm going to show you all how to trim bowls and mugs today. For a bowl, and Rachel, do you mind just waiting till I'm finished because it's just so loud? Thank you. So for a bowl, we're going to trim a foot ring onto it like we did when we made our slab bowls, right? Except this time we're actually going to carve it into the bottom of the clay. So this is where we'll be using this tool. This is called your trim tool. And what we want to do, the objective, is to trim the outside of the bowl to match the inside. So I have a nice rounded shape on the inside, and that is what I'm going to try to emulate on the outside. I'm going to try to cut off this chunk right here to get a curved edge. And then I'm going to carve the foot ring into it as well. So every time that you sit down to trim, first you want to look at the inside of your bowl, and you want to take note of the shape and how much thickness you have to cut off. And then we have to center it. So the process, here, take this off so you all can see. The process of centering is similar to how we start to center when we're throwing. We want to use the throwing lines to guide us and try to get it as close to the center as possible. And some of you who have bats, it'll be easier, I think, if you take the bat off and then you can use the rings to guide you. All right, so I think I've got it pretty centered now. And then I'm going to use my needle tool, hold it in both hands, and draw a circle on the top, and then release. So I'm holding my hands steady to draw that circle. Move this a little closer. Okay, so now I can see how much I have around the edge, and I'll just pick this up and show you guys because I think I can get it recentered pretty easily. But I have an even circumference here around this edge. So I'm looking at this outer lip right here. And to test it, if you want to, while it's still on the wheel, you can use your fingernail and just check it on all sides. But you never pick it up after you draw the line and get it centered, because then you have to start the process over, which is what I'm going to do. But let's say it's not quite on. And I draw my circle, starting closer to the center than the outside, because you're gonna work out to the outer edge. Now it's thicker on this side than it is on this side. So that means that I need to nudge the bowl towards that thinner edge and then check it again. It's still a little off, so I'll nudge it again. You want to just nudge it in small increments so you don't overdo it. See, it needs to go that way. Okay. And if you need to, you can kind of wipe these off with your thumb or with your sponge to get a clean slate. And check again. Okay, so that's going to be pretty close. Looks good. So now I have an even circumference all the way around. Now we have to adhere the bowl to the wheel so it doesn't go flying off when we try to trim with it. So we need a little bit of clay. break it into 3 sections and anchor it down with this soft clay, just soft plastic clay straight out of the bag. When you anchor it, you want to hold down on the pot to make sure that it doesn't move at all, and press down with these little anchors. So if you push in with it, you might slide the pot off center. So what you're doing is you're pushing down onto the wheel head rather than pushing it in. And that's gonna anchor it and keep it secure so we can trim it. And your wheel head definitely has to be completely dry when you do this, because when it's wet, as we know, the clay will slide off. All right. So now I know, I have an idea of what the inside of my bowl looks like, and I can use that to sort of tell where I want my foot to be and I'm gonna draw out my foot initially, just so I have a little bit of a guide to where I want it to be. And then using my trim tool, I'm gonna carve out the center part first. So I have my wheel speed set to medium. You are going to be inclined to want to go slow, but then it will take even longer to make a full rotation and you'll get uneven edges on your pot. So the faster the better in some ways. I'm starting with the right point, angling it in and down, and then just working my way straight across until I hit that circle and lifting and releasing. Again, starting in the center and working my way from left to right. You have to sort of check the thickness of your bottom before you do this to get an idea of how much you can take off so that you don't push all the way through when you're trimming. And each time I'm just starting in the center, going from left to right. And then this is sort of a more advanced skill, but eventually if you tap it, you can kind of hear the differences in tone in the thinner places. So if the tone starts to get deeper and more robust, you know that it's getting thinner, and you want to stop. All right, so I have the center now. For the outside, I'm going to start with the left corner of my trim tool. And just press down into the clay. So now I have this little concave area and my foot is completely marked out. Now using my trim tool, I'm just going to take off this extra hunk that I have here. And I'm starting at the very side of the foot and working my way down and around, just carving out that rounded shape that I want. So Sky, it's like Sky and Kaylee, it's like this. That's the motion that I'm doing. My foot a little bit. I like to have a little bit of a rounded edge here. I think I can take a little more off. to just use my sponge and smooth it out. This is just a way that you can finish it up to make it look the surface nice and polished. And then you can polish it up also with your rib tool. You can really use any of your rib tools for this. I would say use the rubber or the wooden though, probably not the metal. And I usually leave the bottom of my pot unglazed. So I really like to burnish it and polish it up a lot. But yeah. So you flip it over, and I have that nice rounded curve that matches the inside. So again, you want to look at what the inside of your pot looks like. You have to take note of whether it's rounded on the inside or more angular like a cylinder before you put it on. And center it the same way. I never have to do this because I have this really handy tool called a Griffin grip that sits on the wheel and it just anchors it and centers it for me. It's very nice. Okay. Okay, that is centered. Same thing, I'm anchoring it down. I'm not pushing in, I'm just pushing down on the clay. And I'm holding it with my hand so that it doesn't slide. If it slides, you have to start the process all over again. So you want to mainly focus on taking off this outer corner edge. And I'm going for kind of an egg shape. So I don't actually have to take off much from this mug because it was pretty thin to begin with, but some of you will have pretty thick cylinders. Have to lean over and check it. I usually do this with a mirror so I don't have to strain so much, but great. I like to round out this edge. If you don't have to trim the bottom, because it should be perfectly flat, but if you want to take a little off, if it happens to be very thick, or you know, you want to just even it out a little bit, you can, but you want to focus on having just a slightly indented concave bottom, because you run the risk of trimming more off on the edge and then having a convex kind of rounded bottom, and then it'll wobble and it won't stand up straight. So you want to keep that in mind. Just same process, smooth it out, and then next I'm going to show you all how to add a handle to it.